And I may say I'm very happy to be back again here at the Agile Eastern Europe Conference. The atmosphere is great. I like the way that people are interacting with each other. I like the way that people are catching up on the stuff that's happening in the Agile world. So, yeah, this is really a great conference and it's very great for me to be here. The thing I'm going to be talking about today, I called it the road to agility, and it's basically focusing upon organizations that are trying to become agile, but who are finding out that while Agile looks simple, it isn't easy to do it. And there's some stuff involved in there in how you really can increase the agility in your organization. And I'm going to be talking about that and giving you lots of ideas on how to do this stuff in here. Again, also referring back to Stephen Perry this morning, I'm very happy to see a lot of women in the room in here. Basically, if you're talking about agility, you're talking about organizational change. And one of the things which is important in there is diversity, having different people in your organization, different views on matter, different approaches to how you would do things in there, and it's very happy to see a very diverse audience in here. Also, a lot of stuff that has to do with organizational change is about soft skills, is about listening, is about giving feedback, and women tend to be better in that. So men, here's your chance to learn some stuff about that, but also learn, please, from all the women who are here in the room, because I think together you can do it. What I mostly do with organization nowadays is focus on continuous improvement. So I'm actually helping them to find ways to continuously improve in their organization, looking at the value that they are delivering both on a team level, but also on an organizational level, so higher up in the organization. So usually work with teams and managers in organization in an advisory role. I'm also an editor for InfoQ. I'm actually also covering the conference, so if you see me in some of the other talks sitting in and taking a lot of notes, that means I'm preparing a write-up or preparing an interview that I'll probably be doing with that author to cover the great ideas on infoq.com. The other thing is that I'm very eager to learn about software development, to learn about the way that we do software development, and to see what's working in an organization, what's not working in an organization. And there's a lot of opportunities for me in there via InfoQ to talk with people. I'm involved in a lot of networks where I can learn a lot, but I also like to learn from you. So if there's anything that you're interested in, anything that's going well in your organization, anything you would like to share, send me an email and I would love to talk about that. This is not a sales talk. I'm genuinely interested to learn how things are going in the organization. I actually quit my first job because I couldn't agree with the R&D manager on how to do software development and said, bye, I'm gone. This is not the way that I'm going to be working in a company. So this is something that's been on my mind from where I started in software development and which is still on my mind. So I really like to learn about stuff. Looking at agility, let's go back to the Agile Manifesto. And one of the things that I like from the Agile Manifesto is that this was finally the first software development approach, the software development method framework, which clearly stated that we do not have the answer. A lot of other methods still pretended that they had at least some ideas on how to do it. Like the CMM, later CMMI had some ideas on these are the things that need to be in place, and if they're in place, then you're probably able to develop software. And most probably you are. You might be developing the wrong software, you might be developing in the wrong way, but yes, you're capable of developing something. If you look at the project management frameworks, it was more or less the same stuff in there. If you do it like this is most probably going to work out your organization. This is the way to do it. And this is where Agile started off very differently, because it basically stated that we are uncovering ways, we are uncovering ideas, finding out on how to do software development. And they looked at this 10 years later, and they looked at this 15 years later, and nobody said we should change it right now because we found a silver bullet. Because basically there is no silver bullet. The idea in software development, as in any product development, but certainly in software, which is a creativity activity, is to keep on learning, to keep on reflecting and find ways to do it better and learn from the things which are going on in your organization. So you're never done with that. And that's what the Agile Manifesto makes very clear. It's also clear if you look at the Agile Principles, one of the principles in there, it is the last principle, I would love to have it higher up, but it's in there, says that teams should be reflecting on their way of work, should be looking how things are going in their team, should be looking how things are going in the organization, learn from that, and find ways to adjust their behavior. One key word in here is also behavior. We're not talking about adjusting a process. We're not talking about changing somewhere in a document. No, we're talking about adjusting behavior. This is real change, doing things differently in the way that you're doing software development in your team. That's the key thing if you look at continuous improvement. And that's also one of the key things if you want to go towards agility. Because you're not going to get there if you're not going to do things differently in there, right? So it talks about adjusting behavior. It goes back to basic organizational change and people change again. And what I see is that if you want to make Agile work, continuous improvement is important. But the lucky stuff is that actually a lot of stuff on continuous improvement is in Agile. If you look in Agile, there's lots of practice in there that can help you to improve. There's things like the stand-up meeting. If there's any problem in the team, it can pop up over there. You can discuss it, you can look for a solution, you can deal with it. There's a Scrum Master in there who always is focusing on how things are going in the team. Is there any problem? Is there anything that might be coming up? Is there anything that might not go as well as we expected it to go, and then would address it? There's the retrospective that you can use to improve if you're working in Agile way. So there's lots of stuff built into Agile to learn and to continuously improve in there. So it's a two-way direction. You need continuous improvement to make Agile work, and Agile has built-in mechanisms to do continuous improvement. And actually that's also the way that I suggest if you want to do an Agile transition in your organization, is to do it in an Agile way. And this is where a lot of transitions actually fail, because they try to make a big plan and then roll out Agile according to plan, right? We want to make our organization Agile, and we're going to do it in a waterfall way. That's giving a bad example, I think, on what you really want in the organization. So my suggestion always is, if you really want to become Agile, start behaving Agile, and also behave Agile in the way that you want to introduce Agile in your organization. So, going back to the road to agility, what are the main things that you need to travel this road, to really increase the agility in your organization? And for me, there are three things which stand out in there. First one being, you have to understand your needs. You have to understand why you actually want to become Agile, why you would like to increase your agility. Because it's not a goal in itself. There must be a reason why you're doing this kind of stuff, and it's important to understand this. The second one is to prepare yourself and to pack some stuff that you want to take along if you're going on this Agile journey. What's the kind of things that you need? And you're going to be changing this along the way, but you need some initial stuff in there. You need some things when you want to get started with this, and just to be prepared on what's going to come up. And the third one, very important, is to start traveling. So actually start doing this. And also this is something that you would do in an Agile way. So you might be adjusting your needs along the way. Once things become more clear, you might be picking up different things that you would need for your Agile transition along the way, and you continue on traveling. That's also why I urge people to start traveling as soon as possible. So don't think for 3 months on how you want to become Agile. Think for it about 1 or 2 weeks and then start doing stuff, because that's where the Agile change comes from. I seem to have some problem with my clicker. So let's do it this way. Looking at why Agile fails in organization, and these are actually some quotes from the annual State of Agile report, the recent State of Agile report. And one of the things that they explored is what are the leading causes why Agile projects are failing. And the main ones there, I'm not sure if you can read it in the back, but it says company philosophy or culture at odds with the core Agile values. And when I look at this, my first surprise is, okay, so we're saying in the organization that we want to become Agile, so we want to live up to the core Agile values, we want to do that stuff, but it seems to be in conflict with the things that we're doing in our organization. Why the hell are you doing this? Why the hell are you trying to become Agile? Is there a core conflict between the Agile values, between the ideas behind Agile and the way that you're working in your organization? Because if this is the case, it's most probably never going to work out. So for me, this triggers in another way, like, okay, so did you think about this stuff? Did you think about the core values which are there in your organization? Did you think about the principles and that you look at how these things are consistent or not consistent with Agile. Because you find out along the way that this is a conflict, that's not the kind of surprise that you would like to have, right? This is something where you should think about when you start with Agile. You think about that things might have to change in there and better be prepared for that. Second one says the lack of expertise with Agile methods. And the main suggestion here would say, yeah, but the easiest way to learn this stuff is to start doing it. So if you find out during your Agile transition that you have a lack of experience, that you don't know how to do the stuff, then you're not doing it enough. Let's go back to extreme programming. One of the initial methods in Agile, which was there, says, okay, if something is hard, try to do it as much as possible. Because that's the way for you to learn it. That's the way to get really good in this. It's hard, but it's important. Do it as much as possible. Reflect, because you're going to have to deal with this. Don't try to postpone it. Don't try to ignore it, because it's important. But it is hard, and the best way to learn it is to do it often, frequently, and learn about that. Then the third one says the lack of management support. And this is something that I still see in a lot of organizations. I recognize this from this survey. A lot of organizations say that we're not getting support for Agile. And I'm going to dive into that in the next slide also. What's some of the reason behind that? Looking at the main barrier to Agile adoption is that they said, well, the ability to change the organizational culture, that's the main barrier. This one really stands out. I think the other ones are something like 42 or something like that. This is the real main thing which stands out in there. This goes back again to if you want to increase the agility of your organization, increase the way that your organization is able to deal with change, increase the way that your organization is able to go into an uncertain future and will be open to the things that are needed in there. Because that's the kind of stuff that you will need, and you need to get this culture working in your organization if you want to do something in there. Looking at management support, this is a situation that I had when I was working with one of my customers. They hired me at that time because they were working in a project team. They were thinking about developing a new product management system in their enterprise. This was really a big enterprise organization worldwide. And they've set up a team of experts on product management from different divisions in the enterprise who were working together and who were exploring on how they were doing product management to agree upon that and to come upon one way of doing product management worldwide in their enterprise, so to get some alignment in there. And they hired me because they said, okay, we want to work Agile with this. We're more or less a business team, and we're going to be working with our IT department. Our IT department has fully gone Agile, so we also want to work in an Agile way. And we need you, first of all, to be their Scrum Master, which would be a part-time job. I wouldn't be there full-time, just a couple of days per week. And we also need some kind of Agile coaching on how to set up the organization, how to get this working in there. But the other thing that the manager who hired me told me was, I want you to be careful with those people, because these are experts. We only have about one expert in every division who really knows how this kind of stuff is done. So it's not a matter like if you don't like the guy, then we're going to get another one, because there is no other one. This is the only one who knows, and these are the only people who know about this, and that's why we have thrown them in the team. So be careful about what you do with them. Be careful on how you are working with them. And that should have more or less triggered me already, because he's asking two things, like, I want you to make them work Agile, and I want you to be careful with them. I saw a conflict coming up. Not in the first week, but second, third week, I was sensing like, okay, this is going to be really challenging. And what we actually saw is that there was a lot of resistance from the teams in there, be it either silent or be it openly. Silent way would be that we would discuss on a sprint and say, okay, this is the kind of stuff that we're going to be doing in the next 2 weeks. I would be following up with them, checking how things were going, like once every 3-4 days. Wouldn't even be able to do a daily stand-up because I wouldn't do it. And then I would find out after 2 weeks that they only finished maybe one thing, maybe not even one thing, they were working on 5 or 6 things. And then I said, okay, but that's no problem. We just extend the sprint. We make it another week. And then at the end of that week, they would say, okay, but that's no problem. We can do another week. And they weren't delivering. They were just extending the sprint, working on 5 things at the same time, not finishing anything in there, because basically they didn't want to have it finished, because their idea was, once we finish it, we can't change it anymore. And then we're stuck to this for the next 2-3 years, and we don't want that to happen, so we're not going to finish it, we're just going to keep working on that. So they weren't really buying into any of the agile ideas in there, because they were basically grown up in an organization which was used to waterfall. I also found out along the way that they had some discussions with their manager about how things were going in there, and instead of their manager coming to me, he was just talking to them, but they were not talking with me about how things were going in there. So I was really sensing like there's no support for this manager to go agile. And the main reason was because I didn't know why he wanted to go agile. He's just been told like, okay, the IT organization is agile, so I also need to do it. He didn't know what agile was. I tried to explain it in a couple of sessions with him, but then he would simply shut down like, okay, I don't need to know this, I'm a business manager. If you would discuss with him, like, what's your real problems in there? What's the things that you're really facing? Like, what would be the need for agile? He actually wouldn't know. Like, I did a couple of sessions with him. We couldn't get a clear answer on that. So it wasn't clear why he wanted to do agile, and in the end it turned out that he actually didn't want to do agile at all. What they actually did after a couple of months is to say, okay, we don't want a Scrum Master anymore, we want an agile project manager. They hired somebody else. Actually, I knew the guy that they were hiring. It was a former colleague of mine, and we worked together very well. We shared the same agile values, and we actually had a big laugh about this and said like, okay, they don't want to go for Scrum, they don't want to go for agile teams, and what you're basically going to be doing for the next 6 months is going to be doing some project management, and then maybe you can throw some agile stuff in there, but don't have too high expectations about that, because it's agile project management. They wanted the project management stuff in there. So going back, if you got some signals that there's no clear idea from management why they would like to go agile, they don't know what's the reason to do this, then there's a big chance that you're not going to get the support along the way which you need to work with teams and to really go in an agile direction. This is very important to check in there. By the way, the easiest test that I know to see if an organization really is supporting the agile transition is if management steps in or helps out when there's an impediment. So when a team goes up to the manager, when an agile coach goes up to the manager and says, I need some help with this, they want to know the problem, they want to know what's really happening in there, and they will be discussing with you and exploring ways to solve it together. Not like, okay, thank you for reporting the problem and we're going to solve it. Also not like, that's your problem because you're agile right now. No, they're really looking for a collaborative way to solve the problem. If that is happening in an organization, then I know that I got support from management, because then they really want to do it. So going back, if you want to do an agile transition in your organization, make sure that you know what is the reason that this organization wants to go agile. And I prefer to bring it down to one main reason why they want to do it. The main reason can be that they're losing from the competition right now, that they're losing ground, they're losing customers, and this is the main thing that they need to work upon right now. That will be their focus. And why does it matter? Because it will help you to pull out those things in Agile that will actually help you to realize that goal. Because you're not talking about implementing Agile like something which is written down in a book, like it's a fixed method. Again, this is not what the Agile Manifesto is saying. If you want to make Agile effective, know why you're doing this. What is the real business problem which is there that you're trying to solve for this? And apply Agile in such a way that's going to be helping in there. That's important to know. So if the real thing is we want to get our customers back, make sure that you're delivering products in a short cycle and getting the feedback from your customers. And you may go low in a lot of other stuff in Agile, but make sure that the delivery cycle is there, because that's the way to keep your customers and to get more customers, delivering stuff in there. So that is the way that you should look at Agile. Actually, I got a short list here of the kind of improvement that you can get out of Agile, like delivering the right product, shorter time to market, increased productivity, happy employees. All of these are true, but you have to translate these ones again to the business need which is there. So if the manager says, I want to be delivering the right product, then you want to go one step further and say, okay, well, what are the right products? When do you know that you're actually delivering good products for your customers? Because that should be the goal, not just saying, I want to deliver right products. On the other extreme, if you have managers who say, yeah, I want all of that, then you want to go back and you want to focus. Like, okay, you can't get all of that at the same time. I can't increase quality and deliver quicker and become cheaper. That's not going to work out. It's like the old thing that we have with the project. You can make a project finish on time, deliver the right quality, and stay within budget. You're happy enough you can control 2 of them, but not 3. The same is true here. So if they say, I want to have everything of that, go back to your managers and say, okay, but which one is most important? And why? Why is this one most important? What is the real business benefit? Because you're going to need that along the way. One of the things when you know why you want to go agile, which has been helpful, is to do a kind of self-assessment. And there's actually tons of methods to do this. It will help you to see what's the kind of things you're doing already in the organization which fit into the agile values, which fits into the agile mindset. What's the kind of things are happening already which you can use if you're going on an agile journey? Because for no organization this is going to be a complete transformation. There's always some stuff in there which relates to the values. There's always some stuff in there that you can use. And certainly when you're starting out, it will be very helpful if you know these kind of things. You're able to explore them on your agile journey. And this is where these agile assessments can help you. By the way, we discussed this stuff in one of the networks that I was participating in on how would you do this, what's the kind of things you would look at. And what we found out during those discussions was try to focus these kind of assessments not on the practices, but try to go back to the values, try to go back to the principles and see if they really understand the values and the principles of Agile. So they really understand why they're doing a practice. So instead of noting down, yes, they're doing stand-ups, okay, but do they know why they're doing those stand-ups? Are these stand-ups indeed effective? Are they helping them to reach the values that Agile has? That's the kind of things that you would like to be asking in there, to really dig deeper and know that they're really doing for the right way. So, we know why we want to do Agile, we know the business need, we know the business problem that we would like to solve, and then we got some idea on where we are right now. So this is about the time to start traveling. But before we can start traveling, we need to prepare. We need to think about the things that we would need in there to really do this. And this is where I work with HR coaches and with Scrum Masters to say, okay, what's the kind of things that you think that you would like to take along if you're going on an Agile journey? What's the things you need in there? And what mostly stands out, if I do these kind of discussions with them, is that they say, well, I'm going to need some kind of skills to do this. Mostly soft skills. And they also say, okay, there's going to be some kind of knowledge, tools, stuff that I can use to do this Agile transition. But like skills, it mostly goes back to have a kind of soft skills in there. I also ask them, what's the kind of stuff that you would like to leave at home? What's the kind of stuff that you don't want to take along? And this is usually where they can pinpoint some kind of behavior where they would say, well, this is the kind of way that we're doing things in the organization right now. And that's really conflicting with Agile. That is blocking us. That is disabling us to really be flexible in our organization. That's the kind of things that I would like to leave at home. And the more specific that they can name that kind of behavior, the more they will be aware of when they start doing the things in the organization, and will help people in there to say, hey, this is not helpful. Let's try to find a different way to do this. By the way, if you're thinking about the journey, if you're thinking about starting traveling Agile, also think about potential risk and opportunities, because you also want to be prepared for that. And I'm not meaning doing risk management in a traditional way, like doing a complete risk analysis, because most probably you won't be able to do that. You don't know what's going to be happening along the way. But at least be aware of some of the main things where this can go wrong. And think about a couple of ways that if this would happen, how you would address this. So if this problem will pop up, how can you deal with that? By the way, one way is not enough. If you know a problem, you have to have at least 3 solutions to that. If you don't have 3 solutions, you don't understand the problem. If you only have one, you haven't really thought about the problem enough. So make sure that you have a couple of solutions in the back of your head when such a problem pops up to be able to deal with this if you're on your Agile journey. By the way, the same is true for opportunities. There might be some interesting things ongoing in your organization that would actually help you on this Agile transition. If there's some teams in there already doing stuff in Agile, that might be very helpful to talk with them and to set up some sessions where they can share their ideas, where they share how they're doing this right now, where they can talk about their successes. If you have parts of the organization who are looking at things like lean startup, like really developing new products, they might be very likely candidates to work in an Agile way because it would support their ideas on how they want to get products out to the customer. So also look for opportunities, look for ways like, if this is going to happen, or this is with an organization where it would be interesting to do change, then there would be something to pick up and to work with that. This is different, by the way, from a pilot project. I don't think pilot projects can be really helpful in here, because the biggest thing with a pilot project is that most likely that one will succeed, but isn't any guarantee that other projects will succeed. And the second bigger issue is that you will be copying things from the pilot project to the other parts of the organization, like this is the way to do it. And again, this is not Agile. Agile is about finding out what's working for you. And that can be very different for different parts of the organization. So you don't want to be copying things in there. You want to set up a culture where people can learn and find their own way to do stuff in there and keep on improving. Skills, typically the things that are very important. And I see the same if I do workshops with teams with organization on increasing their agility. Things like skills always pop up. They say, yeah, we need to have those skills. We need to be able to deal with that kind of situation. And it's mostly soft skills. It has to do with communication. It has to do with coaching. It has to do with helping people to change in the organization, giving feedback on how things are going right now. This is the kind of skills which are very important if you want to get change done in the organization. And these kind of skills are something that you need to develop. I think the other thing, if you look at skills, is also to be able to get a system view, get an overall view of how the organization is doing, how teams are doing. Because a lot of the behavior can be explained if you look at the system. So instead of addressing individual behavior or what individual people are doing, look at the system on which the people are in and look how that is influencing their behavior. For instance, if you're wondering why managers do something, 9 out of 10 times look at what their manager expects from them or look at the bonus. 9 out of 10 times I will explain why a manager is behaving in a certain way. So if you want to have something change in there, you can try to work with the manager, but you probably will have to work with the manager's manager or with the system in the organization that is surrounding payment bonuses. Because if you can influence that system, then you can probably get a different behavior. But you can't expect the manager to change the behavior as long as he's in the same system. That is simply not going to work out. So if you look at soft skills, this is something where I see that a lot of people, would like to develop this further. Like they have some basic skills in there, they'll be doing this, but they would like to develop those skills. And these are the kind of things that I suggest to people if they want to develop their skills in there. The first one being is that don't be afraid to try out some new stuff in there. So if you're working with a team, if you're working with parts organization, you're working with them as a coach or as a scrum master, try to do something different in there. It can be like, okay, trying out a new technique in the retrospective, trying a different way to stand up. If there's an issue in there, get people together, find a way to discuss this with them. Anything that you think that might help to do the change in the organization, dare to try new things in there. And if you're uncertain about this, then just tell it to the people that you're working with that you don't know for sure if this will be working, but you would like to try it out with them. And you can find out along the way that it isn't working. By the way, asking for feedback can be very helpful. So if you're working with people, also ask them, guys, is this working out for you? Is the way that I'm doing this with you right now, is this useful? Be open to feedback, but just be honest with them. And say, I don't know if this will be working, but I'm trying to find a way to solve this issue. And this might be a way to do it. So I want to try out this new thing with you. Training can help to develop those skills. What you often see in these kind of soft skills training is that you can practice some of the stuff in a safe environment. You're in a classroom, training room, in a workshop. You can try out some things in there. If you fail, there's no problem. You're actually learning a lot, so it's actually great if things go wrong in there. And it's a safe place to do stuff in there. So training, workshops, where you will be practicing stuff, not from a book, practicing stuff, actually doing stuff, can be very helpful to do this. Bigger organizations can also have people who are coaching each other, so you can have one coach giving feedback to another coach. You can help each other on developing your skills in there, and even have communities of practice where you will share how things went in the team, how you're trying out new stuff, how did it work out for you. That's the kind of things that you were looking for to develop your skills. This is something to think about if you're going on an agile journey. If all of this stuff sounds weird to you, if all of this stuff sounds like something like, okay, that's a no-go, this is something that we cannot do in our organization. If I come to my manager, then he's going to shoot me. Then you're going to have a big problem with your agile transition, because as a coaches team, as Scrum Masters, but also as managers in the organization, these are the kind of things that you need to do this change. And if this is a no-go area, then this is something that you should work on first before you would even try to do something like agile. Because if you don't work on that, for sure it's going to fail. Okay, we know why we want to go agile. Again, back that business goal, the reason why this is important in the organization. We prepared ourselves, we got some basic skills in there, we got some ideas on how we want to do it. We did a first assessment on knowing, okay, this is where we are right now, and this is the direction we want to go. Then the next step would be to start traveling, to actually start implementing agile in your organization. And this is again where you want to implement agile in an agile way. So instead of rolling out everything which is in agile or everything which is in Scrum into your organization, which is more or less a waterfall way, training everybody, and then saying this is the way that we're going to be working from now on, my proposal would be to introduce this gradually to the organization. And depending on the capability of your organization to adjust to change, there might be a big difference in there on how fast you can roll this out in the organization. And that's okay, because you shouldn't be overloading the organization with change. You should be feeding those changes into the organization up to a level that they are capable to deal with this and to feel comfortable with this, even if they're somewhat uncomfortable along the way since things are changing. But they should be able to feel with this and say, yeah, we think that the change is going at a speed, at a pace that we think we can cope with this. Actually, a lot of agile transitions, this is what people are complaining about. They say we're completely overwhelmed by all this agile stuff. We don't know what's expected from us, and we can't keep up with this. So try to do it in an agile way. And then, if you want to do it in an agile way, okay, then you want to think about, okay, what's the kind of stuff that I will be feeding right now in the organization? What's the stuff that I will be like to do a little bit later? And actually, the kind of decision taking in how you're rolling out agile is very much similar to the kind of decision taking which is in agile if you look at prioritizing your product backlog. There's a lot of similarity in there. If you're prioritizing your product backlog, you're looking at which things would have the biggest value for my customers. That's the one you want to have in there. But it could also be a reason like there's a big risk in this one, and we want to try it out as soon as possible to know if this is going to cause problem or not. There could be things in there where you want to have information. Again, this goes back to things like lean startup. You want to bring a product out because you don't know if there's a real need from customers or not. You want to have information from your customers. And there could be things that you want to learn, like you want to develop some skills in the organization and where you want to focus on learning. So, similar to how you prioritize a product backlog, the criteria that you use in there, you can use those same criteria if you're looking at your agile transition. So look at the things where you think, this will probably bring the most value to my organization. Start working on those. These are the things where it probably will fail. Okay, when do you want to know? 3 months from now, 6 months from now, or next week, if it's going to fail. I prefer to know next week. If you look at the customer that I worked with, I would prefer to have known that in 1 or 2 weeks that this is not going to work out. That would save me about a couple of weeks wasted time with the customer working with it on something that was not going to work out. So try to put it at risk as early as possible. The same mechanisms for prioritizing your product backlog are just as value for rolling out agile in your organization. We talked about already on doing change in your organization. Quickly want to name Kanban in here because it's basically a system who looks at continuous improvement starting where you are. So instead of saying we're going to roll out a complete new thing in there, no, look at the stuff that you're doing already. Use that as a base to do improvement in there. Experiment and actually look at the kind of pull-based change. So instead of pushing things out to teams, look for ways where you can say, this is the kind of things that you can do in Agile. You're working right now as a team. What would be the kind of things that would be helpful for you? This is again where self-assessment can help for teams to decide on what are the kind of practices we would like to use and where you can help them as a coach. Dealing with blockers and impediments is something which is important. This is something that you certainly need to know as a Scrum Master, but also as an Agile coach. There's a couple of techniques in here which you can use in there. There's about 6 or 7 posts on my website who go deeper on this kind of stuff. This is something that you also need to know if you're going out on Agile transition, because problems are going to happen, and the better you are capable to deal with them, the smoother your Agile transition is going to go in your organization. I mentioned already retrospectives. We saw it also in several talks today. This is a great practice to see how you're doing. So start doing them from day one in your team. Start doing them from the first iteration, from the first sprint, and help teams to learn how things are going. Help them to learn also to self-reflect, because they would need to develop the skill to look how things are going and to learn from that. And the best way to do that is to start doing retrospective with them from the start. And try, if you're doing those retrospectives, to focus on what I call on the vital few actions. So instead of having a big list with actions on things that they need to improve, pick out those things that they can do in the next sprint. Take small but continuous steps in your improvement journey. You don't want to have a long list, just 2 or 3 things that you can do in the next sprint. And then you will be reflecting again, and again there will be 2 or 3 things that you can do in your next sprint. It's more than enough to keep the improvement ongoing. You don't need a long list for that. There's some last golden rules I would like to give you for improvement. This is actually what we used when I was working in Ericsson with a team which was doing improvement along different development sites. And we actually used some stuff from Open Space, from Agile and from other principles, where we said, okay, if you're going on a change journey, share stuff, be open also on who's working on stuff, who's picking up on stuff, but also be open to have somebody else contribute to the things which are there. This was a couple of rules, and there's a blog on that, which is linked from this slide, which gives you more information on how to use this kind of stuff. But the main thing in there is collaborate as a team and be open. The team result is much important than the individual result. So I'm going to skip this one and go to my last slide, because we also want to have some time for questions. If you want to go an Agile journey, start doing it. Take the first step. So think about why, what is the big problem in your organization you would like to solve? Think about the first step that would help you to get started with this. Pick something you learned. It could be from the conference today, it could be from this talk, it could be from a blog or anything that you've seen recently, but pick something that you say, yeah, that might be the way that can help us. But then think about how you want to do it in your organization. Because you always have to tailor that to how things are going on in your organization. So think of a practical way to do it and start doing this. And basically, every journey for agility starts with the first step, and the trick is to make that step and to keep on walking. There's a book on continuous improvement. If you're interested to learn more about this stuff, send me an email. I can send you a review copy free of charge, and then you can read this book and keep up to date with the stuff that's happening in there.